Nagbanta si Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte nakakasuhan ng economic sabotage sa mga sangkot sa pagkita sa mga umano'y hindi patas na kontrata sa Maynila at Manila Water.
Kami ang Katipunan ng Demokratikong Pilipino, ang KBP, ang partido para sa kinabukasan. Tigil bayan, tigil bayan, tigil bayan sa 2020. Kapag pinutulan, tawagan si Digong sa numero 88888.
Makinig kayo mabuti ha. Kung walang tubig, patay tayo. Now, itong tubig is a natural resource. It is God-given to the Filipinos. Ano ba nangyari yung putang inang yan? Pagsasampalin ko kayo sa public. Pilipino yan, walang kaluluwa. Yang Manila Water, pati Maynila, kay Pangilinan, pati kay Ayala. Matagal na ito. Wala lang pumipiyak kasi nga takot sa pera ni Ayala, pati ni Pangilinan. Putang inan to. They are screwing us and they're screwing us all the way. Matagal na ito ang corruption na pinakamaya bilyon nandito sa itaas. Anak ka ng putang ina ninyo. So I want a rich guy who has been wallowing in its filthy house with all the mga tawag pa pala sa kanila sa bahay, senyorita, senyora, senyor, kahilas ng putang ina. Hoy, hindi na panahon ng katsila ang leche kayo. Do not fuck with me, my friend. Ilang taon na kayo nagbayad ng water treatment ang putang ina niya. Hanggang ngayon, mabaho pa rin yung lumalabas doon sa Manila Bay. Leche kayo. Walang water treatment, sige kayo kobra. Anong tingin ninyo sa amin? I could establish a prima facie case. Then I will file plunder. Ang plunder, Padre, Mr. Ayala, Nobel yan. Gusto ko makita na milyonaryo na makulong. Putang ina, do not fuck with me. Putang ina, do not fuck with me. Putang ina, do not fuck with me. Now I will order the armed forces to operate your order. Kasi, sundalo. Take over kayo.
Ikulong, yan ang nararapat sa oligarko. Ibalikan ninakaw nilang dapat sa mga tao. Tigil bayad simula Enero 1, 2020. Pag pinutulan ka, sumbong mo lang kay Duterte. Yung pisong halaga, ang inyong naibulsa. Patong-patong na kaso ngayon na nakakasa. Ilang taong na mayagpag sa laki ng tinatamas. Nakahiga sa salapi sa paghuhulag. Umaasa sa potahe na nagpahirap sa mga Pilipino. Walang mga konsensya tuloy sa pagmemerwisyo. Kung di pa na-opposite, kung di pa pansinin. Lalabas ka totoong ipiit ang salarin. Pagkakabos mo kang lamang, dapat lang na matigil. Kayo ang nagkasala, dapat kayo ang masingil. Dati yung patawa-tawa, dito na magwawakas. Babagsak kayong lahat, tasarehas sumilhimas. Tigil bayan, sigaw ng Pilipino, taong bayan. Mga oligarko, dapat lang na maparusahan. Tigil bayan, ang tubig na galing sa kalikasan. Sabay-sabay tayong lahat. Tigil bayan, sigaw ng Pilipino, taong bayan. Mga oligarko, dapat lang na maparusahan. Tigil bayan, ang tubig na galing sa kalikasan. Sabay-sabay tayong lahat. Tigil
Atong ipreso ang mga oligarko, ibalik tanda ang mga ninakaw sa tawo. Pondo bayad umpisa Enero 1, 2020. Kapag pinuplang ka isugid mo kay Duterte. Trilyong pisong halaga andang binusa. Kaabong mga kaso makarong kanda nakakasa. Kaabong dagkon yun kabaho ang inagyan. Mga nakagubog sa kwarta, mga purilo, hindi masaliga. Andang sabotahe, sanda nagpapudlay. Katong mga Pilipino, huwag mga konsyensya, padayo ng perwisyo. Di masairan kung wa pa si Digong nakapungko. Hindi maguwaro matuod na nag-ubra. Mga abusado dapat mapundo. Pondo bayad, singgit Pilipino, taong bayan. Mga oligarko dapat sandaro, pasakitan. Pondo bayad, pondo bayad, pondo bayad. Ang tubihalin sa kalikasan, pondo bayad. Mga tanan. Pondo bayad, Tondo Bayan Ikulong maunang bagay sa oligaryo nga tanan Ibalik ang gikawat para sa mga katawan Hulong ang pabayad sa Enero 2020 Kung ikaw putulan nila sumbong kay Duterte Yung pisong kantidad imbis ihatag ibulsa Patong-patong nga sala Karon ang nakakasada ko ang gita masaan sa paglingkod pila katuig Gahigda sa salapi Sa kadugay nga pagsalig Sa butahing pagkabudlay sa mga Pilipino Walay konsensya gipadayon Sa ato pagpurisyon Huwag kapungko si Digong Di na nila mapansin Maguwas ka matauran Gipiit ang salarin Mga abusado nga labaw Dapat mahunong malagot ka muna ang nakasala Dapat kamo ang masuk Dati sige mo katawa mauning katapusan Sariya sige himas kay nabagsak mong tanan Hunong bayad, syagit sa Pilipino taong bayad Mga oligarko ay dapat lang masilutan Hunong bayad, ang tubig nagikan sa kalikasan Magdungan tang tanan hunong bayad Hunong bayad, syagit sa Pilipino taong bayad Mga oligarko ay dapat lang masilutan Hunong bayad, ang tubig nagikan sa kalikasan Magdungan tang tanan hunong bayad
Prisuhon ang nagakabagay sa oligarko Ibalik ang mga kwarta kaging kawat nila sa tao Untat bayad sa Enero 1, 2020 Utang ka mo nila isugid lang sa kay Duterte Sa trilyon ka piso kantidad nga ilang aging bulsa Dubli-dubli nga kaso ang ilang nga manging karma Mila katuig na baka namin sa kwarta nga kinumpit Sa mga tao, mga tunto, abusado, pamerwisyo Wala ba ka mo naman dito sa inyo nga kinitaan O di mo nga imo nakuha nyo pa yung agatasan Gabi ka mo batasan, hindi mabatasan Ang inyong gahis ang una mala is the way to heaven Pero subong mapasan o sabay, amen Kay ara na si Digong, wala sang makapugong Oras na nga bukawon ang paminsalo nyo nga lipong pamati Ang singgit sa katawan, nagasigabong Untat bayad, singgit sa Pilipino nga katawan Untat bayad, mga oligarko dapat nahatulan Untat bayad, ang tubig nga halin sa kalikasan Dululungan kita tanan isinggit, tigil bayad
Binulgar na ng Pangulo natin si Digong Ang katiwalian ng mga oligarkong pugon Tangin siya lang ang ating pag-asa na tutugon Dito sa mga madugos na dapat nang makulong Mga walang iya kayo, mga walang pusok yahaman Inaabuso kahinaan ng mamamayan Asan ang pinapangako nyo ng magandang serbisyo Pinako nyo na nga, ginawa nyo bang negosyo Grabe na, kaya dapat lang matigil na Ang kasakiman nyo na ugat ng problema Ang tubig ay buhay yan ang inyong tandaan Ngunit itong oligarko ginawa pang kabuhayan Kaya ikaw na nakikinig nito sa mga mandarambong Huwag ka nang magpauto, imulat mo ang iyong mata Buksan mo ang isipan mo, huwag na huwag kang matatakot Si Digong kakampi mo,
Tigil bayan, sigaw ng Pilipino taong bayan Mga oligarko dapat lang na maparusahan Tigil bayan,
ang tubig na galing sa kalikasan Sabay-sabay tayo lahat,
tigil bayan, sigaw ng Pilipino taong bayan Mga oligarko dapat lang na maparusahan Tigil bayan,
ang tubig na galing sa kalikasan Sabay-sabay tayong lahat, tigil bayan
sigaw ng Pilipino taong bayan Mga oligarko dapat lang na maparusahan Tigil bayan,
ang tubig na galing sa kalikasan Sabay-sabay tayong lahat, tigil
bayan, sigaw ng Pilipino taong bayan Mga oligarko dapat lang na maparusahan Tigil bayan,
ang tubig na galing sa kalikasan Sabay-sabay tayong lahat, tigil bayan
Habulin ko talaga kayo. Habulin ko talaga kayo. Yayariin ko talaga kayo. Yayariin ko talaga kayo. Yayariin ko talaga kayo.
Tigil bayan! Tigil bayan! Tigil bayan! Sa 2020! Kapag pinutulan, tawagan si Digong sa numerong 8888.
Magandang gabi po sa ating mga katipan. Ngayong gabi, nandito po tayo sa ating palatuntunan, ang Ating Katipunan. Ako po si Butch Valdes at kasama po natin si Itos as usual. Ngayong gabi ay medyo importante po sa atin dahil po we will take the opportunity for us to deliver to you the State of the Nation of KDP. And it will include, of course, certain things which we hope the President by now would have already included in the State of the Nation that he will be delivering tomorrow. So I will be going through the whole kung dito po sa ating palatuntunan, I'm going to be going through the whole 12 points of the suggested and proposed moves that the KDP would like to see in the SONA of the President. And after that, ang gagawin po natin, i-discuss natin po, kasama ko si Itos, kung ano ang kinakailangan sigurong konting elaboration, konting pagpapaliwanag pa. No? Pero ito pong umpisahan po natin ngayon without much ado. Umpisahan ko na po itong delivery ng SONA 2020 ng Katipunan ng Demokratikong Pilipino. My dear countrymen, the task of confronting our political leadership today is one never before faced by any of the post-war administrations, from Manuel Rojas all the way to Benigno Aquino III. President Duterte, who has, from his experience as a local government official, decided that the nation's problems centered on communist insurgency, warring Muslim factions, the threat of secession, and drug proliferation. To these, he concluded that he effectively addresses these issues with a strong military and an efficient police organization would suffice, as was his experience as mayor of Davao. Furthermore, as expected of a Mindanao politician, the idea of federalization of the country would suit well to solve the political and ethnic disparities of our region, of their region. 4 years since his phenomenal victory for the presidency, Duterte's report card on insurgency, war on drugs, Muslim secession issues are at best debatable. As if to admit his limitations, he publicly pronounces that he only promised to address criminality and insurgency, but that he leaves the running of the economy to his experts. So now, as the country and the rest of the world reels in the devastating effects of a pandemic, paralyzing whole economies with almost 50% unemployment rates and rising, threatening starvation of populations, killing much more people than the dreaded COVID-19 ever will, our lives are left in the hands of Duterte's economic experts to save. Or is it ever their intention to save our lives? The controversial Train Law 1 and 2 falsely claimed to finance the Build, Build, Build program does not in fact do as they say, since the infrastructure of roads and bridges are already funded through the long-term loans from China and other banks. These additional taxes are inflationary and unnecessarily raising the burden ultimately on the already suffering population. The rice tariffication law is another disingenuous scheme concocted by Duterte's experts to allow free importation of rice benefiting importers but grossly detrimental to our farming sector trying to survive debilitating conditions of life. These and some other similar measures are what the now infamous Duterte economists who are entrusted by the President with our lives are what we all can expect in the coming SONA tomorrow in the afternoon. We expect a wish list of what they would like to be the new normal. Empty rhetoric, but no concrete steps and programs to achieve these, and other than the usual and baseless hope for a vaccine to be discovered and for the rest of the world, as with it, to be saved. The Katipunan ng Demokratikong Pilipino considers it its duty to share to our countrymen our own version of the true state of the nation 2020 and propose that the following initiatives be taken by the Chief Executive designed not only to assure our survival as a nation, but to redirect our economic policies towards achieving development through agro-industrialization and not rely on OFWs who have become the world's modern slaves as the principal means of our survival. We need to be aggressive in confronting the crisis and massive deterioration of life, rather than sit idly by, hoping it will all go away. First and foremost, we have to realize that post-1986 revolution, the economic advisors of Corazon Aquino and Fidel Ramos dismantled our infrastructure development program and transformed our economy from what would have been a producer economy to a service economy, focused on training and exporting our people to be the modern slaves of the world. Still here, we converted ourselves to be call center operators, servicing businesses in Europe and in the United States of America. Today, as the world economy starts to grind to a virtual halt, our country's leaders are at a loss on what to do to save the nation. The KDP submits herewith to the President and the Filipino people the following urgent steps for the survival and development of our nation. Number one, we propose that the President declare a state of emergency on the power sector to address the biggest cost burden on every Filipino household for the last 2 decades. Letter A, to suspend and review the EPIRA law and temporarily grant a 50% discount on all electricity bills for a period of 3 months, pending the outcome of the said review. Letter B, to restart the Bataan Nuclear Power Plant as soon as possible, despite the dilatory actions from concerned agencies like the Department of Energy, Department of Finance, the NEDA, and others similarly influenced by oligarchs involved in the power sector. Second, we propose that the President, while in a state of emergency, include the water sector, temporarily take over the management of waterworks system in Metro Manila, suspending concessions awarded to and pending resolution and payment of the debt of Manila Water and Maynilad for 20 years advance collections for the construction of a sewerage system in Metro Manila, which has not started to date. We estimate their collective liability to the people and establishments to be approximately 1 trillion pesos, as the President himself had publicly declared. Number 3, we propose to reserve to reverse by executive order the policy of privatization of all public utilities and move to nationalize all basic services, particularly in electricity, water, telecommunication, mass transit system, and selected tollways. We consider that the public utilities must first benefit the public before all other private business interests, as government is mandated to protect the Filipino people and to promote the general welfare. Number 4, we propose to reinstitute the Oil Price Stabilization Fund to act as a buffer for the continuous price increases of the oil companies, leaving the motorists and transport and cargo truck businesses and ultimately the consuming public unprotected due to deregulation of the oil industry. 4 decades ago, this practice was implemented by government as a shock absorber from price hikes affecting normal business operations created by foreign oil companies operating in the Philippines. The situation has worsened when Petron, an oil company owned by the Philippine government, was privatized by then President Fidel Ramos, leaving the consuming public, the motorists, and businesses unprotected and at the mercy of foreign-owned oil companies. Number 5, we propose that our economic policy be reversed from being a service economy to one which is dependent on exporting our people's OFWs and call center agents to that which is oriented to development of the physical economy, agro-industrial projects, and the construction of infrastructure necessary for manufacturing of steel, pharmaceuticals, fertilizer, machine tools, shipbuilding, and other areas as directed by government. It will suit the people well if the President seriously considers replacing his economic team with one more competent, more courageous, and more patriotic. Number 6, we propose that upon a reversal of our economic policy, subsequently geared towards agro-industrial development, all other departments which comprise the cabinet must likewise immediately adjust to these directions, specifically in education, agriculture, health, public works, transportation, energy, and water, should be fully coordinated like a symphony under the baton of the President. The dissonant ones will be necessarily expelled. Number 7, we propose that the Department of Agriculture be given the urgent mandate to produce food by doubling, tripling, or even quadrupling its volume of production based on the highest scientific methods available, supported by infrastructural developments in energy and water. It is imperative that our country produce more than enough to sustain a growing and healthy population without needing to import its requirements. No country can call itself a nation who cannot feed its own people. The average per capita calorie intake of the Filipino is a little over 1,000 calories per day, whereas the United Nations considers that the standard calorie intake for a human being to function physically and mentally is 2,500 calories per day. Number 8, we propose that the Department of Health be immediately subjected to a thorough operations audit to accurately determine our real capability to provide our population with the health care they deserve. The COVID-19 pandemic has betrayed our utter incompetence and inadequate facilities and personnel, arousing suspicions of corruption and false reporting of the situation. The Secretary of Health must take full responsibility not only for the loss of credibility of his department, but his overall management incompetence and involvement in highly controversial issues, from his questionable evaluation of the dreaded disease to conflicts of interest to massive corruption. Number 9, we propose necessary measures to be taken by government to defend and protect the sacredness of the Filipino family, the fundamental structure of our society. From the destructive elements of godless ideologies, immoral television and radio programs, proliferation of drugs, miseducation, intent on corrupting the minds of our youth, to cause intrigue between their children and their parents. It is apparent that the most destructive of them all is the economic policy of exporting men and women who cannot find jobs here, which will enable them to feed and educate their children. We expect that the reversal of this economic policy will significantly address this malay, especially peace and order, suffered by our youth during these past decades. Number 10, we propose the immediate filing of appropriate cases against those involved in the Maguindanao, Mamasapano, and Kidapawan massacres. Though some Dengvaksha cases have been filed, we lament the fact that the Department of Justice seems not in a hurry to investigate the gravity of this heinous crime and not consider the distraught parents of hundreds, if not thousands, of children inoculated illegally and have died or suffer from permanent damage upon the orders of the previous president and the officers of the Department of Health. Number 11, we propose that the death penalty be reinstituted, covering but not limited to heinous and drug-related crimes, high treason, government officials committing plunder of 500 million pesos and above, fabrication and manipulation of election results of national positions, malicious and willful violations of the principal provisions of our Constitution. Number 12, we propose that the present Constitution be abolished and in its place a new Constitution be promulgated via a constitutional convention with the end in view of addressing the current needs of our population. A. Abolishing the COMELEC as the constitutional body mandated to organize, manage all electoral processes for all positions of government. The Commission is largely believed to be corrupt and inefficient, controlling the outcome of elections, depending on the wishes of oligarchic interests and politicians' contributions. The result, as announced in previous elections for national and local positions, have been fraught with manipulation, computer machine rigging, dubious delays in announcing results. Letter B. No less than the President has proposed that the structure of government be changed from its present system of centralized form of to a federalized form, creation of autonomous states governed accordingly. Letter C. Still others have preferred that the administrative and legislative bodies be changed into a parliamentary rather than the presidential system. A constitutional convention should be held soonest, before the end of the term of current administration, for implementation, hopefully, if possible, by the year 2022. Our party, the Katipunan ng Demokratikong Pilipino, expects the President to face squarely the most difficult problem he and the Filipino people will have to resolve. Together with our constituents, and most, if not all, the people, the collective clamor is to relieve us of the heavy burden imposed on us by the conspiracy of the oligarchs, government officials, and politicians, forcing us to pay the highest electricity rates in the world, paying among the highest water, mass transit, and telecom rates as well. Considering the unprecedented hardship Filipinos are currently experiencing due to a collapsing economy and the pandemic, we hope and expect the President to nationalize the public utilities with the end in view of dramatically reducing the heaviest economic burden of Filipino families. This is his most important decision to make as President of our Republic. Will he be true to his word that he will protect his people, all Filipinos, against those intent on doing us harm, even if it meant the loss of his own life? Or will he capitulate to the massive financial power of the oligarchs and allow them to take over our sovereign nation, now and succeeding generations? Tomorrow, July 27, will be the defining moment of the phenomenon known as Rodrigo Roa Duterte. Will he rise as a living Filipino hero, or will he renege on his promise and betray his countrymen by protecting the interest of the oligarchic few? We pray for his sake and that of our country that he makes the right choice. Magandang gabi po sa inyong lahat. Okay, balik po tayo dito sa ating katipunan at kakatapos ko lang po i-deliver ito pong KDP SONA 2020. Yeah. Ito po ang KDP, ang Katipunan Demokratikong Pilipino proposal na mailagay ng ating Pangulo sana dito sa kanyang darating na SONA bukas. No? Kung hindi ko po alam kung ito nga ang tututukan niya bukas at natatakot ako baka iba ang kanyang sabihin. What do you think it does?
I don't think hindi po ako confident na ito yung tututukan niya. I think he will announce certain things like ABS-CBN and other things. But ito pong economic system, ito pong oligarkiya, kahit medyo umaasa tayo, medyo hindi po, yung realidad po, iba. Yun lang yung pananaw natin.
Sa palagay mo ba, Itos, tinatanong ko din ito sa mga ibang mga kaibigan, mga ibang kakilala. Kung alam niya na ganito ang dagok sa atin ng mga itong oligarchic system of the privatization, does he really know the impact on the Filipino family by this privatization program? Yung pagbibigay niya ng kuryente sa negosyo kuryente dito at dito. What do you think?
I don't know kung alam po natin, nothing in the last 4 years po na will give us any indication na he wants to change the economic policy of the country. Yes, actually nag-complain lang po siya about oligarchy when sumingil na po yung Manila Water and Maynilad na kasi nanalo sila sa arbitration case dito sa Singapore. So nagalit siya, nakita niya kung ano yung mga yung unang-una niyang ginawa, tinanggal niya yung Mighty cigarettes, di ba? Tinamaan rin po niya yung si Ong Pin. Bobby Ong Pin under that. But then yung gaming, yung casino, remember? Pero after that po, yung policies that he implemented, sabi niya wala na daw, hindi naman daw siya ekonomista, so he leaves it to his economic managers. Lahat po ng kinuha niyang economic managers, hindi po natin alam kung sino nag-aabiso sa kanya. Kung sino ang kunin nilang managers, we can only speculate. Pero kilala na natin yung mga yun eh. So they had been running the economy since Fidel Ramos.
Right.
So the direction po, pareho pa rin.
Yan sila, sila Benjo,
yes,
Dominguez brothers, tapos itong
so
mga ibang parang UP economists,
UP School of Economics, na wala siyang bagong programa or economic. Ang ginawa niya, siguro tinanggal niya yung certain areas of corruption, kinuha niya, tapos ito, binigay niya, he helped increase salaries or he helped push the salaries of the military, police, yung mga ganun po. Maganda po yun, pero it will not change anything. That will not last. Because the economic policy is the same. So, going back to your question, obvious, kahit sino po, sabihin natin, gusto nyo ba ng 50% discount sa electricity na binabayad? Opo, bakit hindi? Pero I doubt na magagawa niya yung
nitong presidente.
Yes.
Alam mo,
because it's a whole policy and may mga epira.
Right. Well, I'm just saying that sa atin, of course may epira, pero yung 50% discount na sasabihin natin, habang review yung epira, dahil COVID situation tayo, dapat talagang maggawa siya ng across the board, pagbawas sa bayad sa kuryente, dahil naghihirap na ngayon talaga ang mamamayang Pilipino. So I just said, okay, for 3 months or while pending the review of the epira. Now I just wanted to bring you back to last December. Nung pumutok siya at nakita niya na sinisingil pa tayo nitong mga ito ng Manila Water.
Nanalo kasi
ng ilan? 7 o 10 billion pesos.
10 billion
Supposedly nanalo sa arbitration court. Alam mo itong mga arbitration court na ito, yung may duda na ako dyan, mga house-show yung mga yan. Diba? Besides, bakit tayo dadalhin sa arbitration court? Ang gobyerno ay may karapatan sabihin, oy, ibaba nyo yan yung sinisingil nyo sa taong bayan. At kung hindi niyo ibababa, mawawala sa inyo ang concession na ibinibigay namin. Hindi ko naman alam. Hindi ko naman alam kung bakit meron tayong
We're fixing the technical. Sige lang. Go.
Okay na. Ayos ka na. Okay. Hindi ko naman alam. Saan na ba ako?
Yung arbitration.
Arbitration. Okay. Kung bakit itong mga tiga-gobyerno natin, sila Fidel Ramos, na nagbigay ng concession dito sa Manila Water at Maynila, nagpapayag sila na kung papasok ang gobyerno para pigilin ang kanilang pagtataas ng singil, pwedeng dalhin ang gobyerno natin sa isang korte sa labas ng Pilipinas. Sa akin, ubod ng katangahan siguro, no? O kakontsaba nila itong si Ramos dahil gumagawa ng paraan na ang gobyerno hindi makakapaggawa ng pagtatanggol sa buhay ng mga mamayang Pilipino.
Yes.
It ties the hands of the government, no, purposely, so that it cannot help the Filipino people. So this is the thing that is really, to me, totally irregular and so much like criminal. Okay. Having said that, when Duterte found out that this is being done, and he saw the gravity of what had been collected from all consumers for the past 20 years, supposedly to put up a sewerage system in Metro Manila. 20% of what we were paying as water bills must go to the sewerage system construction. For 20 years po, wala pong nagawang sewerage system itong mga ito. Ang total na nakolekta nila sa taong bayan para dito sa sewerage system, sa 20 taon, halos umabot na po ng 1 trilyon. So sinabi niya, this is the biggest corruption in our country. Galit na galit po siya. Yang mga smuggling ng droga, yang mga kung ano-anong crime, yan mga pagnanakaw sa gobyerno. Sabi niya, ito ang pinakamalaking korupsyon sa ating bansa. What is he talking about? The business that has been given to them by previous administration, given to the oligarchs, no, to basically to exploit the people. He was only talking of water. No? Hindi pa nabubuksan ang kuryente na mas malaki pa di hamak sa tubig. Yun ang sinabi ng presidente noon. No? Kanya ngayon, at sabi niya, ipapakulong niya yung mga yan. Sabi niya, kakasuhan niya ng plunder. Sabi niya, because this is prima facie, syndicated estafa. Yun po ang hahanapin sa kanya ng taong bayan ngayon. Because that is what he said, the biggest, at ramdam na ramdam ng taong bayan, ang pagnanakaw nito mga ito, at pag hindi niya inayos at itinuloy, ipinatupad yung kanyang mga banta, baka hindi naman maniwala sa kanya ang taong bayan yan.
I have, kasi may tinanong ako sa mga kaibigan nating abogado. Sabi nila, yung mga private companies daw na mag-i-invest dito sa mga utilities, Ayaw daw nila dito yung kaso. So they go to a place like Hong Kong or Singapore where, because daw, dehado sila. Siyempre, gobyerno kalaban nila. So, but again, to your point, dapat naman in favor of government, lahat naman yan eh.
Yes.
That's the whole point. Kasi binibigyan kayo ng pagkakataong kumita, pero wag naman yung ganito. So, sabi nila, they refuse to sign daw cases, deals dito, kailangan doon. Tapos international lawyers pa ang nag-handle doon. Parang gano'n. So,
Correct.
may arbitration in Singapore. The number one. The other one is, don't you think, yung question ko po is, don't you think itong ginagawa sa Kongreso nila Mike Defensor, nila yung nakita natin po na, about ABS-CBN and the franchise issue. Now they're looking at EPIRA. By default, pupunta rin yan sa utilities eh. Maybe not specific kasi hindi sila yung dapat makita no, but they're discussing EPIRA and Meralco. Ang fear ko lang po, baka doon lang sila sa mga Lopezes. Diba? Tumigil. After wala na yung mga Lopezes, kasi parang pinupunterian na yung Lopezes eh. Parang they're focused on them and their businesses involving electricity and water. But shouldn't this be a continuing investigation regardless, diba?
Of course, I agree with you. It must be continuing and open. Like it's a Pandora's box. No? Ang nagbukas po dyan yung Lopez Empire.
Yung
no?
ABS.
Nakita nila yun sa ABS. Nung kinalkal nila, lumabas ang mga anomalya na napakalaki. 1.9 trillion ang utang ng mga Lopezes. Dito pa lang sa mga black box nila. No?
Just on the black box.
Just on the black
The
box.
TV box.
Pero totoo yan, kinakailangan ilabas lahat. At itong inaasahan po natin dito sa mga magigiting na congressman whom I never expected to be as brave and resolute in their decision. Alam niyo po, napakadaling magdesisyon pabor sa mga Lopezes tungkol diyan sa franchise, di ba? Kikita pa sila, mabibigyan pa silang pera nila Lopezes, no? Masaya pang ganyan, wala pa silang kalaman. Pero sila nanindigan, no? And you have to give credit where credit is due, no?
Not to the president.
Ang presidente, hindi ko kasi dito sa pagtatanggal ng franchise, palagay ko hindi naman ginawa nila Remulla yan dahil inutos ng presidente. Nakita nila kung gaano kalaki ang ang problema, no?
Hindi lang labor issues,
Right.
Ang dami pa.
So hindi nila matalikuran itong mga datos na nakikita nila na kung paano nagnanakaw itong mga Lopezes. So that's where it opens, no? And then pagkatapos ngayon susunod nilang iniimbestiga sa kuryente naman, no? At ako naman ay natutuwa na inumpisahan nila bago pag-usapan ng Meralco, inumpisahan nila yung EPIRA law, no?
Right.
Ano ba yung EPIRA law? Is it an onerous or an immoral contract, or is it good for the people?
Right.
Katulad po nung sa tubig, dapat ang usisain po natin sa tubig, itong mga kongresista, ang usisain nila yung concession agreement, yung kaumpisa, hindi yung utang ng for the past 20 years. Okay na yung given na tayo. But this contract that government and businesses went into, this is what I mean. Hindi po makukuha ng oligarko yung mga concession na yan. Kung hindi ibibigay sila sa kanila ng mga gobyerno, ng opisyalis ng gobyerno. Therefore, if it is onerous and immoral, there may be a conspiracy between these two. At kumikita yung sa gobyerno, kumikita din yung nasa mga oligarko. Ganyan na rin sa EPIRA.
It was kung hayaan natin na tuloy-tuloy yung investigations on this at ilabas natin sa Kongreso lahat ng detalye ng kontrata, by default, shouldn't we question the policy, which is number 3 on the KDP list?
Ito nga yung sinasabi natin, no? Kung nandyan na tayo sa tubig, andyan pa yung sa kuryente.
Lahat ng anomalya,
nakita natin. Ito yung mga tinatawag natin basic services. Public utilities. Kanya po tinatawag yan na basic services at public utilities. Ang una pong dapat makinabang dyan ay ang publiko at hindi po ang negosyante. No? Kasi ang negosyante, isa lang ang pakainan. At kikita. Magkano ba kikitain ko at paano ko bang papalakihin ang kita ko? Para pong aso yan eh. No? Yun lang ang kanyang direksyon. Bahala na ang gobyerno, bahala na ang ibang tao sa kapakanan ng taong bayan. That is a role of government.
Yes.
Now, you give these public utilities to businessmen and tie your hands so that you will not protect the public. You are criminal. It is a criminal act to do that. It is treasonous. No? Because you have abdicated your role to protect the citizenry.
Uphold the general welfare.
Uphold the general welfare.
In the Constitution.
Iyan po ang talagang punot dulo na dapat maintindihan ng ating Pangulo. And this, to me, is what will define whether he is a traitor to the people or he is a living patriot and hero for the country. Yun po ang mangyayari ngayon. Pag hindi niya isinama itong napaka-importanting issues na ito.
So seeing that, tomorrow is State of the Nation.
Yeah.
Okay. He has, realistically, 2021, he has about maybe a year and a half left in his administration. Realistically, assuming, sabihin niya bukas, sabihin na natin, ituloy natin investigation, despite po yung medyo bumawi siya na mahipagkaibigan daw siya. Assuming
nag-apologize pa siya.
Apologize or sabihin ng Maynila and Manila Water, deal na lang tayo. Pero tuloy pa rin yung concession agreement, right? Assuming ginawa niya or assuming sunundan niya yung ating mga nais, KDP, and defense the Filipino people. He has 1 year and a half remaining. What is the realistic steps that he has to take? Assuming, sabihin niya, bukas we will take over now these utilities. What do you advise him to do?
Well, exactly what we're saying dito sa ating proposal, no? Na kinakailangan mag-declare siyang state of emergency at kunin na niya, i-nationalize niya itong lahat ng public utilities. At I say this not only because of patriotic reasons, but this is for economic reasons. No? Dahil po makahuhusay po sa palagay ko ang ating ekonomiya kung gagawin niya ito. Bakit po? Sabi ko sa kuryente na lang. Kuryente na lang. Ang kinokolekta ng power sector from power generation, power transmission, at power distribution. Kada taon ng siguro mga 10 oligarko lang dyan, ang kinokolekta nila every year is I think 1.5 trillion pesos. 1.5 trillion pesos. Ang kakayanin po yan, napaandarin lahat ng kuryente, distribute, transmission, kulang pa sa 500 billion pesos a year. Ngayon, kung kukunin po ng gobyerno yan at ibababa ang halaga ng kuryente ng 2/3 or even 50%, ano pong mangyayari? Para ka na rin nagbigay ng 1 trillion pesos sa taong bayan. Cash because ito yung babayad nila sa Meralco at ang gagawin mo, kalahati lang ang babayad nila. So para mo na rin binigyan sila. Hindi po ba? Yung mga negosyante, ganyan din ang mangyayari. So what had happened is the government had in effect pumped in money into the hands of the consumers and the businesses, without printing money, without borrowing from some banks. All you did was nationalize and bring down the price of electricity and water and all other public utilities. Yung sinasabi kong 1.5 trillion ay kuryente pa lang yan. Yung tubig, ganyan din. Hatiin mo. Yung mass transit system, yung telecom, di ba? Yung telecom, tingnan niyo ang nangyayari ngayon. Tayo ng isa sa pinakamataas na binabayaran sa cellphone na etong natin, yung mga rates ng and yet we are the most or we are the least efficient or the most inefficient in terms of telecom industry. In other words, they would rather be inefficient because their profits are very high. Now, if you nationalize this, because when I say nationalize, tatandaan nyo po, ang telecom, mass transit system, ang water and electricity, pati na rin itong mga healthcare sa hospitals, ay pag-aari po ng gobyerno yan. Atin po yan. At ang ginawa po natin, ibinigay natin sa mga negosyanteng pribado para sila na ang magpatakbo.
Yan ang tinatawag na privatization.
Ito yung privatization na ginawa. Nung binigay po natin ito, para mo nang binigyan ng negosyo ang ibang tao. Pero dapat, yung kapakanan ng taong bayan, hawak mo pa rin. Para hindi nila aabusuhin. Ang ginawa nitong mga gobyerno natin nakaraan, sila pa ang gumawa ng batas para matali ang kamay ng gobyerno na hindi nila matulungan ang mamamayang Pilipino.
Yan ang sinasabi nilang regulatory capture.
Right. This is treasonous, immoral. This is not just a mistake in economic policy or a mistake in coming up with a contract. No. This is done on purpose. And when you say they exploit the public of this, you're actually creating the conditions for a higher mortality rate of your population because you push them into a higher level of poverty. And poverty means high mortality.
Gusto ko lang, again, going back to my question, ano yung next step? I-nationalize mo, sasabihin mo, siyempre magpoprotesta yung mga oligarchy, the ones who own these companies. Sasabihin na, we invested how many years? Put in money. Kaya kumikita kami ganyan, but yun ang agreement natin eh. So ina-nationalize mo as a president, kung ikaw po yung nakaupo, how will you approach them and tell them?
First of all, I'll ask, okay, you said these are the companies that we have given to you, and you said that you had invested.
Okay.
Each one of you, let us study what was really invested.
Okay.
Or what was borrowed, and the banks have lent us, and you have...
so you do an audit?
Mag-audit ka kung gaano kalaki ang talagang pinasok niyong pera.
Okay.
So eto na, alam na natin ito. Gagawa ako ng paraan, sasabihin ko, babayaran namin yan, ibabalik namin sa iyo ang tunay na investment ninyo. First of all, kailangan alam natin yung tunay na investment.
Okay.
No? Pangalawa, Porque natanggal natin sa public utilities at ang gusto natin, agro-industrial development mode. No? Eengganyo natin itong mga oligarkong to na pumunta sa mga importanteng industriya na kinakailangan ng ating bansa.
Na hindi public utilities.
Na hindi public utilities. Kasi doon dapat ang mga industrialists. Itong mga ito, nabigyan ng parang gatasan. Gatasan ang ginawa sa atin. At binigyan nito ng negosyo, itong sila Ramos, binigyan nilang negosyo itong mga oligarko. Sigurado, merong balik yan sa mga nagbigay ng negosyo. Tingnan nyo, kung sasabihin natin, kunwari, sa mga Aboitiz, Mr. Aboitiz, dito kayo pumunta sa gawaan ng bakal, steel manufacturing. Or Ramong Nang, you go to fertilizer manufacturing.
Agriculture.
Or pharmaceuticals, or shipbuilding, or machine tools, and so on. Smelting plants. Okay. Pero ang gobyerno, sisiguraduhin, tutulungan kayo. Bibigyan kayo ng mga credit tax incentives. Tutulungan kayo sa pag-uutang. Gagarantihan ng gobyerno ang murang pag-uutang. No? Uutang sila on a country-to-country basis para mabigay dito sa mga industriya.
Can they use a national banking instrument to do that?
They can, no?
Because you're dealing with government.
Yes. For example, uutang tayo sa China. Mr. China, gagawa kami ng steel plant. Kami ang kami ang garantisado dito. Ilalagay natin dito sa steel plant na ang magtatayo dito ay privado sektor.
Like say SMC, infrastructure.
Tapos babayaran ka namin, no? Kasi sa government to government, napakaliit po ng interest. Matagalan pa yan. Babayaran ka namin every year for the next 30 years. Ganyan, no? Ang gusto sabihin, ang burden nito, mas mababa. Hindi lang yon. Dahil binabaan mo ang kuryente, mababa din ang bayad nila sa kuryente. Aandar po yung mga industriyang yan. At pag nandyan po yung mga industriya, ito pong mga dadagsaan OFW na walang trabaho, no? Diyan natin po sila ida-direct, no? At
trabaho sila.
Kukulangin pa po tayo dahil sa development.
Parang si FDR na.
Right. So you see, this is not just debating whether privatization is good or not. This is not just debating whether they owe us 1.9 trillion or 1 trillion pesos, no? Or this is more than that. But this is the vehicle where we can use in order to achieve that development mode for the country. So it is very important. Salamat at nabibigyan mo akong pagkakataon na itos, mapaliwanag ng mabuti itong ginagawa natin. This is not just being a nationalist or patriotic. Nandyan na tayo, no? Kasi marami naman sa atin nationalist and patriot. Pero ito po ang kakaibahan ng ating economic program. Dito sa economic program na isinusulong ng mga taong yan na sila Benjo, no? Yan sila Sunny Dominguez, at sila Chua, kung ano-ano pang ginagawa nila. It has nothing in the line of this development. And the reason for this is not that it is just a better system. We need this in order to survive and develop. We need this. This is not just a contest between two economic methods. School of thought. No, this is what we need because we are facing the biggest economic and health crisis this country has ever experienced. And it will get worse. And if you don't do these moves, we will not have anything. I doubt whether we'll even reach 2022.
Yun lang, gusto ko lang idagdag. Sabi po ni Butch na this is not just a debate of two economic theories and two modes of because we need this. Ang idadagdag ko po, I think it's pretty apparent yung resulta po ng ating mga policy in the last 30 years. The results are out, and our people are suffering more than they ever did before these policies were enacted.
Right.
And the reasons that they enacted it were spurious at best, parang fake news. Eh, sabi na, kailangan natin ng investment, wala na tayong pera pang-invest sa power plant, wala na tayong pera pang-invest sa tubig. So kailangan itong private sector, PPP, public-private partnership, privatization tayo, they will take on the burden of building new systems and in return to recoup their investments, they get into this. Yun po yung sinasabi natin. Ngayon yung resultang nito. We are paying the highest. Remember sa EPIRA po, ang sinasabi po nila, bababa yung electricity rates kasi free market. Bababa daw, ang dami kasing sources. Never happened. Tapos we are paying, not just it never happened, we are paying the highest electricity sa mundo. So, this privatization, deregulation, globalization policy, which was done after 1986 and until today is the same kind of policy and same kind of economic thought that is being pushed on our government by the same guys who are still there, has failed. Bumagsak yan. Kasi yung metric for how they failed is yung tao lalong humihirap, nagugutom, namamatay. Mali eh. So, if this current president may chance pa po 1 year and a half to steer the country in a different direction and hoping that the next president, if there is an election, the next president takes up this and with our Congress asserting their right as a sovereign state and as a sovereign country against these laws, then we have a chance as a nation po, may future po tayo. Otherwise po, wala na. Kaya sinasabi po ni Butch, we need this now. Otherwise, ang daming mamamatay. Ngayon pa lang, daming na namamatay. Pero if this is not turned towards where we see where the KDP wants it to go, we will have, ngayon pa lang sa baseball stadium sa Rizal, nakikita mo na eh. Imagine kung lahat yan umuwi, may trabaho. Wala na tayong OFW. Imagine. Kaya po natin yun eh, kasi nagawa na dati eh.
Yeah, there is no, from the time that Cory started, there has not been any one president that had seen to it that we would try to get back our people because of the development here. What they did was promote. We kept on exporting our people because that's the only thing that we can really export, our people. No? This is not the way an economy should work because it is like committing suicide. And this is what is happening. Since those people that have been sent abroad have contributed to the productivity of wherever countries they are working. And so, if, however, you created the conditions here so that their skill, their knowledge, and their labor can be used here, the development of the Philippines is going to be much, much faster and much better because it will be providing for the next generation. Ano ba ang gusto nyo? Na itong mga OFWs, ang mga anak nila din, OFW na din, at yung mga apo nila magiging OFW. Ganyan na po ang napapasok sa isip ng mga tao ngayon. Kanya mo inaalagaan ng isa mong anak, no? Papaaralin mo, ganyan. Para maging OFW din siya. Kakaawa eh. Dahil napakababa ng tingin natin sa sarili natin. Alipin ng mundo.
Yung isang presidente, sinabi pa, hero sila.
ano na yun eh, di ba? Sabi ko nga nung nandun ako sa I was before in Department of Education, and I said, if we are, I admit, of course, that it is very difficult for people to go abroad and leave their families. And they, to that extent, are the heroes because they're sending money to the Philippines and helping the Philippine economy. I said, but if that's all we want, if that is the direction of our country, then I said, we do not need the Department of Education. Hindi natin kailangan ng Department of Agri. Mag-ano na lang tayo, Department of OFWs. Tama, yun ngayon. Huwag na yung education. Kasi ang education, dapat inaano mo yung, tinuturuan mo yung mga kabataan para maging ang talagang heroes natin. Jose Rizal, Polinario Mabini, itong mga magagaling na Pilipino na kaya natin.
Who wanted an independent, sovereign country.
Yes.
So we decide on our own. We are not servants of other nations.
Yes.
Yan ang ating history, diba? I wanted to go back to, I think it was number 8 or something. You mentioned po yung OPSF.
Yes.
How will that work today? I mean, in the 70s, it was put by Marcos, diba?
Yes.
So I wanted a little explanation of why we say we should bring that back.
Well, the OPSF is the Oil Price Stabilization Fund. Isa pong pondo yan na linilikha. No? Paano nililika yan? Kukuha ba tayong budget dyan? Ang ginawa po ni Pangulong Marcos noon ay hindi siya gumawa ng pondo galing sa gobyerno. Ang ginawa niya, yung habang nakakabenta ng gasolina, no? Ang usapan niya, yung ₱1 doon sa pagbili ng gasolina ng tao, ibubukod yan, no? Para mag-build up ng isang pondo. They will put it aside to call it the Oil Price Stabilization Fund. Kung sakali, for example, ang presyo ng gasolina ay 40 pesos per liter. Yun ang hinihingi ng
Oil producer.
Ang gagawin lang yan, piso dun sa oil. Sasabihin nila, kung kukuha ka ng piso, gagawin namin 41. O sige, 41 pesos. Yung piso dun, ibubukod at ibibigay sa gobyerno. May ipon ngayon yung pondo. Ngayon, pag darating ang panahon, gusto nilang magtaas ng halaga ng gasolina. Ang gobyerno sasabihin, tingnan na, bakit ba? Kaysa kailangan natin ang price ng oil sa Saudi Arabia, ganito. O sige, magkano kakailanganin? Ganito. Saan kukunin ngayon? Dito sa pondong to.
So para siyang sangga.
Sangga is a shock absorber. No? Para itong presyo ng gasolina dito sa mga consumers ay hindi na-apekto. Kasi kung ganyan ka ng ganyan, no, etong presyo dito maapekto. Yung bilihin ng pagkain, bilihin ng iba-ibang transport mo, ganyan, at mga motorista, no, apektado.
Okay.
Kaya ginawa nila yon, it is
buffer?
It's a buffer. It's a buffer fund.
It's
exactly.
like it's a temporary fund, right?
Well, not necessarily for as long as you can hold it, but it correctly better to correct definition of it. It is a partial re-regulation. Kasi ngayon, pag ginusto ng oil companies magtaas,
Shell, sabi mo.
wala kang magawa. Right? Pero bakit partial? Ngayon, pag sinabi ng oil companies, pagtataas kami, no? Tayo muna, sige, magkano ba ang taas, no?
Okay.
Ito na yung gobyerno, no? O sige, alam na itong oil companies na may buffer fund.
Okay.
Tapos doon sila kukuha. But it must be justified. Doon sa pondo. At habang may buffer fund, itong OPSF, na hindi nagkakaroon ng shock, hindi na nagugulo yung normal operations ng mga consumers. Now, it's not permanent that the price will stay there. Kasi the conditions might be so dramatic na kakailanganin talaga magtaas. Pero hindi agad-agad. Ibig sabihin, matatimingan natin yan. It will rise, so on, so. Ngayon, sabihin, every week nag-rise no? Aatras ng ilan araw.
May gulo sa Middle East, tataas yun.
Ganyan. Maski on news pa lang, ha?
On news.
May gera lang dito, eto na, no?
O baka magkaroon ng gera.
Ganyan po ang, kasi, again, we tied our own hands, no? To allow the oil companies to dictate. Alam mo niyo po, ang gasolina natin, ha? Mas mahal pa sa Amerika, no?
I wanted to ask about Petron then. What was the relationship of the Petron and oil price tab, or are they separate?
Well, separate ang OPSF. Marcos put up Petrophil, no? Or Petron, no? It was a Philippine-owned oil company. Alam mo kasi ang mga oil companies, they don't have to be producing the oil. Bumibili lang yan sa kung saan bumibili ang Shell, kung saan bumibili ang Caltex, no? Meron mga binibilhan. Etong Petrophil, siya rin bumibili. Tapos, magbebenta din ng gasolina. Pero como gobyerno siya,
Gobyernong
may-ari, pag ginusto nitong mga ito tumaas ng presyo,
Caltex or Shell.
At ang gobyerno ay hindi, sabi niya, hindi kami sasabay dyan. Gusto nila 40 pesos, kami dito 32 pesos. Ano pong mangyayari? Yung mga motorista hahanap po ng Petron. Kasi mura. No? Ayaw na ayaw nito.
Right.
Okay? Ang sinabi sa atin ng IMF, kailangan i-privatize nyo yan.
Pero yung oil price, how does the OPSF...
May computation eh.
Okay, pero yung OPSF in relation to Petron, ganun rin, they contribute.
Ganyan din, they get 1 peso. Pero
yung, in other words, yung profit ng Petron will be dictated on by government.
yes.
Ito lang, kahit konting-konti yung profit natin, kahit break-even pa yan, or whatever, para lang sa mamamayan yan.
Of course.
Hindi ka.
The reason meron po tayong Petron, para kompetensya sa Shell tsaka sa Caltex. Para hindi sila, that's another way of trying to keep the price down. Pero ano pong ginawa ni Ramos? Binenta yung Petron sa dayuhan. Una sa dayuhan, sa Aramco.
Saudi Aramco.
Tapos, ngayon, ang binili ni Ramon Ang. No? Pero, pareho na rin ang kanilang pag-utak, hindi gobyerno.
Privado.
Negosyante na rin.
Privado.
No? So, hindi na tayo tutulungan dito sa pagbaba ng mga halaga ng gasolina.
So ngayon po, with regards to oil, do you think government should also put up a national oil company like Petron?
Well,
or just on the OPS?
Even before that, I think we should go concentrate on developing our nuclear development program. Kasi ang use of oil is not just cars. No, hindi lang po cars, and ang use of oil is used by industries and everything. No. Pero ngayon ang nagpapatakbo ng mga generators natin, no, are coal and oil, right? No, natural gas. Yan ang nagpapatakbo. Kanya medyo mahal. Ngayon, pag meron kang nuclear, yung kuryenteng gagamitin mo, bababa ang halaga para dito sa mga pangangalakal. No? Okay. Ngayon, gusto sabihin, ang total use ng energy mo A big portion is for industry.
Right.
A smaller portion is for the
Consumers.
motorists. No? Dito, maghanap tayo ng paraan. Okay na ba tayong tawag dito? Okay lang ba mag-import ng oil para dito sa mga motorists? Kasi yung ating industriya umaandar naman sa nuclear, sa geothermal at
Yung vital industries.
Oo.
Pero yung consuming,
Oo.
pwedeng maglabanan na lang sila
Oo,
doon.
depende.
Pwede.
Kaya natin, depende kung paano mangyayari.
Because
But what I mean to say is,
Less dependent tayo on oil.
right,
Right.
rather than focus on trying to put up our oil company and competing with the oil
Right.
firms,
Okay.
first, yung program, energy development program, nuclear. No?
Interesting. So, it's all tied up. Actually, all tied up. Pero, ang laki ng i-reverse mo ng mga policy natin. That's why.
right. I call it reversal.
Yeah, reversal
Reversal
talaga.
talaga.
Pero, you're talking about reversing 30 years. Around 30 years of businessmen and companies making money.
Yeah, but I think
So,
the general business is going to benefit from it.
yeah,
No?
definitely.
If we reverse it, no? I think I also think that these oligarchs, despite the fact that they have abused the franchises given to them, no? Given another environment, they will find ways how to make money.
Yes, I
Legitimately,
agree.
no? Legitimately. At doon natin dapat gagawin. Kanya po naging ganito, nag-abuso itong mga oligarkong to. Dahil binigyan sila ng negosyo ng mga corrupt na government officials.
Yeah.
Yan mga up to the president, no? At mga politicians, no? At mga mambabatas, yan ang nagbigay ng ganitong klaseng negosyo dito sa pribado sektor. Kaya kinakailangan baligtarin natin.
Regardless.
Sabi natin, mahirap yata yun kasi mas 30 years. Well, you have to start sometime.
Right.
At kung sasabihin natin mahirap, hindi na natin gagawin, walang mangyayari sa atin. So, nandiyan na si Rodrigo Duterte. Siya kanya may protest vote na naglagay sa kanya dyan sa as president dahil papalitan niya ang kailangan palitan. Itong mga oligarko, pinagmumura niya. Mga magnanakaw, they are the mother of all corruption, sabi niya. Okay, if that is so, huwag kang matakot dito sa mga ito, Mr. President.
It should be simple if yun yung gusto niyong gawin, di ba?
Sana.
Because all he has to prove, or the Solgen, or the DOJ, or whoever, they have to prove that the contract was not followed.
Right.
So once the contract's not followed, wala na yung detalyeng utang or out na.
Out.
Di ba?
Oh.
Simple lang
Yeah.
na ganun.
Actually, we don't have to prove it, pero they did
legal,
wrong.
yeah.
Legal. But at any time, because of the national interest, the president is empowered. No?
What do they say about, if you do this, the message to the international banks and the community? I can hear already all of these businessmen.
That is
That
like,
sends a bad signal, and they will not invest, and the stock market, and alam mo na.
to me, that is a bogey na parang inaano, lalong-lalo na kung hindi ka nakakaintindi.
What is a bogey?
Parang inaano, yung panakot. Parang kapre,
Bogeyman.
dadating ang kapre, no? That's a bogeyman. Akin po, yung mga yan, pag mag-nationalize ka, pakita mo sa mga nasa labas na nakahanda kang... This is not against foreign companies, by the way.
Right.
As long as the foreign companies go to the industries that we need them.
Yeah.
No?
And the investment is long term.
And it's long term. No?
Hindi siya
Hindi
speculative na.
Hindi na mag-i-invest. Hindi bale, umalis na sila. Bakit? Dito lang sila sa stock market Papasok nila yung $10 million nila, tapos bukas aalis na dahil dala-dala yung kinita nila. It's a looting process. Ninanakaw po yung ating yaman, tapos aalis na. ang tumataya, mas marami syempre natatalo. Like a casino, hindi po ba?
Yeah.
Sa casino ba, magtatayo ba ang casino na mas maraming nananalo kaysa sa natatalo?
The house
Hindi po.
always wins.
The house always wins. No?
Always.
Ganyan din po yung mga yan. No? Papasok sila, papasok dahil, may magandang investment dito, yung tumataas ang stocks. Pasok ka naman. Pagtaas na ng pagtaas, ikaw, no, hawak-hawak mo yung stock, umalis na ngayon sila. Wala na ngayon bibili doon sa stocks mo. No? This is what's happening.
This has
And
been
this
happening.
is the investments that these economists are scaring the president
Yes.
that will not come. Of course, mas mabuti pang hindi dumating yung mga yan kung ganyan silang klaseng investment.
Right.
Pero yung tunay na investor, matagal nang ayaw pumunta dito.
Actually,
Dahil mataas ang kuryente
yes,
natin.
yun na nga yung sasabihin ko eh. Actually, if you bring down the price of electricity,
Papasok at
you have a
papasok.
national energy program. You have a national agriculture program. It
Right.
appears
Right.
going forward. And diba it becomes more attractive for people to invest.
Right, exactly.
Kasi steady.
Right.
Forward plus ano. Pero kung ngayon, alanganin, doon lang sila sa casino. Doon lang
Exactly,
sila
the
sa
casino economy. We'll take a 1-minute break. Okay, balik po tayo dito sa ating katipunan. Ito po yung katipunan si Butch Valdes. Kasama ko po si Itos Valdes. At tayo po ngayon ay tinatalakay natin. Kakatapos ko lang po basahin at i-deliver ito pong SONA 2020 ng KDP. No? Where we had we had 12 points. Siyempre, ang mga gusto natin ilagay, mas marami. Pero tama na itong mga unang-unang 12 points that we need to take up, and we think it's important for us to ang ating pong tinatalakay ngayon mostly our economic policies, no, at ang mga kinakailangan gawin, no, para sa ating bansa. And basically our position is we have to do these things that we are proposing immediately now. This cannot wait anymore, no? Because we are in a very urgent and emergency situation wherein our country, for the first time in history, is facing a collapse of the economy and our health capability, no? Dahil po dito sa pandemic. Tapos ang ating pong ekonomiya umaabot na po sa mga 40-45 unemployment rate. Hindi pa natin binibilang yung mga nagdadagsaan OFW na parating dahil hindi na nila kayang magtrabaho pa sa ibang bansa. Yung mga iba nga daw umuuwi, nakakabaong na po. Kasi matagal silang walang kinakain, walang trabaho doon sa mga ibang bansa. Hindi naman makauwi, walang pamamaraan umuwi, hindi natin pinapasundo sa PAL o mga ating... So naiiwan po sila doon, walang trabaho, gutom, patay. No? Ito po ang tunay na nangyayari sa ating mga OFWs ngayon.
That's a scary social and political problem that we're looking at right now, you know, because pag wala pong trabaho ang mga kababayan natin, paano po sila mabubuhay? So that's a very serious problem we need to address, and I don't think the government has a solution for this.
I doubt, no. Nakita ko po nung minsan, itong mga membro ng kabinete, nakaupo po sila doon at nagbibigay ng mga questions itong si Martin Andanar sa kanila. Yung pong mga sinasabi nila, sa akin pong palagay, parang delibro. At wala pong, para bang walang urgency, no? Walang kailanganin gawin, no? Not in the anticipation of something drastic that might happen. Alam niyo po, isa sa ating kinakailangan tuunan ng pansin, agad-agad. Pag gutom po yung tao, walang trabaho, hindi po, karamihan sa kanila, hindi po sila mananatiling nakaupo at maghihintay mamatay. Out of their instincts, they will try to survive. And this is what I mean is, magiging social problem po natin yan. Kasi, tataas ang krimen, tataas ang pagnanakaw. Habang bumabagsak at lumalawak ang kagutuman, dadami po ang social problems. At pag may spark, may nag-umpisa dyan, na grupo na susugurin itong mga supermarkets o mga warehouses ng pagkain, no? Tuloy-tuloy po yan. Ang ating kapulisan, hindi po nila kakayanin yan. Pag nagdagsaan ang gawaan nila ito. Maski na meron kayong anti-terror bill, you will not be able to stop food riots.
So paano gutom rin yung mga pulis eh?
Yes. Ito po yung tinatawag nating food riots. So we have to we have to make sure that we are addressing this immediately. Yung pong ginagawa nito ng ating pamahalaan, sasabihin, maghintay tayo, konting tiis lang, dadating na yung vaccine. Kalokohan po yan. I'm sorry, Mr. President, kung yan ang sinasabi sa ni Duque, no? Linoloko ka ng gagong yan, no? Huwag mong paniwalaan yan, vaccine. Kinakailangan, umpisahan mo ang pag-ayos ng ating productive sector. Huwag na kayong magtanong dyan, sentido común, no? Hindi basta-basta, sige, buksan mo para may trabaho. Yung mga pangangalakal, hindi na nga makaumpisa.
Which goes back to your statement about the Department of Agriculture.
Right.
Increasing production of food.
Right.
Because food security is probably the most important
Yeah.
right now. And I think everybody, even the corporate heads, have said this in many occasions. Now we need to make sure that we have food. Now we cannot just rely on SM, San Miguel Corporation for food. We have to, everybody has to be involved in this nationwide increasing of production and the capability to produce food for the next. Kasi bumabalik na lahat ng tao, walang trabaho. So anong kakainin nila? Diba?
Yan po ang isa natin sinasabi. That agriculture must be mandated to double, to triple, to quadruple the amount of food that we produce in all areas. Fisheries, crops, rice, corn, lahat. Kinakailangan we move very fast towards that.
Kasi kaya naman
goal.
Kayang-kaya naman.
At kung kasabi ng iba, pero matagal pang epekto niyan ganyan. Kailan ka pa mag-uumpisa kung gagawin yan, sasabihin mo matagal pa. Na talagang dapat noon pa tayo nag-umpisa. Noon pa pagka-umpisa ni Presidente Duterte, nag-umpisa na dapat tayo dito sa mga sinasabi namin. Noon pa. Dapat noon pa tayo nag-umpisa, panahon pa ni Corazon Aquino.
Yes.
Pero mga gunggong yung mga presidente nun.
Tsaka yung mga advisor nila.
Right.
The economic advisors na mas okay mag-import. Mas mura. Tapos i-lessen natin yung production capacities natin.
Ngayon, tingnan nyo, wala tayong kakayanan. Etong rice tarification. Anong ngayon? Maski na marami kang pera mag-import ng rice, ay yung nag-produce ng rice, ayaw na magbenta sa'yo dahil kailangan nila yung kanilang bigas. Ikaw, sinira mo ang kayong capability to produce. And this only happened a little over a year ago, which is so stupid. Yan si Cynthia Villar, stupid talaga yan. Itong nag-sponsor ng bill na yan. Itong mga economic advisors yan, they're really stupid.
But
you see, they have caused the deaths because of that rice tarification.
Negosyante kasi.
They have caused the deaths of many of our people.
You have to protect the general welfare all the time. That is ano. So we have about 1 hour. We have about 25 minutes left.
Right.
Right. So let's go through some questions.
So yeah.
Tonight, so we can greet everybody tuning in. From Facebook, Francis Carpio, sino po ba ang honest? Sila Morcoleta Defensor o sila Lopez? Nako, sino kaya lumalaki ang butas ng ilong po?
Alam niyo po, hindi. Ang nakikita po natin sa Lopez, nakita na po natin na sila po ay basically may utang sa gobyerno ng 1.9 trillion. Ito pong tinitirikan ng kanilang building ay hindi po pala sa kanila. So nagiging land grabber daw sila. Tapos yung mga tax evasion cases, ginagamit itong PDR. No? Kayong mga empleyado o mga tayong simpleng tao, baka hindi nyo naiintindihan kasi itong mga masalimuot na mga issues na ito. Pero napakalaki po ang in-effect ninanakaw nila sa gobyerno.
You're defrauding the government.
Etong Marcoleta, Remulla at Defensor at kung sino pa, 70 ang mga taong yan. Hindi po natin kailangan itanong sa ating sarili kung honest ba sila o hindi. Ang importante natin malaman, ano ba ang nangyari? Sino ba ang humalungkat dito sa mga kabahuan ng isang oligarkong Lopez? Now, kese magnanakaw sila o kese corrupt yung mga kongresistang yan at wala tayong, hindi natin pwedeng pagkailan na itong si Marcoleta, Remulla at Defensor ay nagtrabaho para maungkat itong kabahuan ng mga Lopezes. At dahil doon, hindi sila ibibigyan ng prangkisa. Okay? At maski na yung mga 70 na bumoto na pumanig sa kanila, palagay ko, katulad po namin, nakita natin kung gaano kalawak ang katiwalian na ginawa ng Lopez. Talagang imposible po sa sentido komunal lang na bigyan mo ng prangkisa yung mga yan.
Correct. Okay, Freddy Oredina, walang prangkisa galing sa Kongreso ang Maynila at Manila Water. I don't think it's a franchise.
Yeah, correct. Well, ang sinasabi ni Freddy, kinakailangan siguro yung mga ganyan dadaan sa Kongreso at hindi sa presidente.
Pero
lang.
tignan natin yung batas.
Well,
because it's not a franchise to be given. No, it's a concession agreement.
Right.
Iba yun, eh. So,
pwede pong, that can be a debatable issue. Right.
So. Pero tama, kasi kung franchise, you're given a limited amount and government owns it.
Kasi it's a privilege that you're giving. No?
Franchise. So, Glenn Buwan, di ba nakasama sa monetary or central bank policy? Kasi kasama dapat sanang sovereign or fiat money sa overall economic program natin. I'm not sure.
Yeah, alam mo yung fiat currency. No? Hindi pwedeng basta-basta tayo at tataliwas dito sa international financial system. No? Kasi po maliit lang tayong bansa. At pwede natin gawin, magsarado tayong buong mundo katulad po ng ginawa ng China. No? At pinaandar nila yung kanilang ekonomiya ng nakasarado. Pero umabot din doon sa panahon na kinakailangan nilang magbukas. No? At ito nga ang nangyari, nung nagbukas sila at sumama sila sa sistemang financial system, pero kontrolado nila yung kanilang ekonomiya, kanya po nakaunlad yung mga yan. Tayo po, ang talagang problema natin, ito pong pinagkakautangan daw natin, sila ang nagditikta kung paano at saan pupunta ang ating ekonomiya. Yung mga economic advisors natin, mga gunggong yan, sunod-sunuran lang yan sa IMF. Maski na ang IMF ay gagawa ng patakaran laban sa kabuhayan at kapakanan ng mamamayang Pilipino.
Yeah. Ogie po, pababa lang, Rox. Ogie po, ano ba ang masasabi niyo sa nangyari sa ABS-CBN patungkol sa alegasyong paglabag sa Commonwealth Act number 146 na kung susuriin ay kasalukuyang nilalabag din ng PLDT, Smart TV5, GMA, Globe, among others?
Alam niyo po, tama po kayo. There might be other organizations that are against this. No? That doesn't mean that they will not be investigated later. But the thing is, it was ABS that was asking for a franchise. No?
Yes. So they had to study everybody. Pero hindi ko po alam yung Commonwealth Act number 146. Pero in the 1987 Constitution, it's clear, 100% ownership will be to Filipinos pag media company po. Ngayon, yung PDRs cannot be used to get foreign investment kasi nilalabag nila yung Constitution. So in your question about PLDT, Smart TV5, GMA, Globe, yes, ang alam ko po may PDRs rin sila. Now kung kakasuhan sila, pero kakabigay lang ng bagong prangkisa yung mga yan. But again, government has the right to look into that also kung gusto po nila. Ngayon, there has to be someone going, and not just these media companies, many other companies. But sa Constitution po natin, 87 pa lang, it's clear that the media should be 100% owned. Kaya po yung Rappler nagkakaproblema. And just to be clear, yung sinasabi ng ABS-CBN, na pinpumayag na yung SEC. Among the other things they falsely claim, no? Yung SEC po, nasa hearings po, sabi nila, hindi kami pumayag na ibenta nyo yung PDRs nyo sa foreigner. Pumayag kami na bebenta kayo ng PDRs. Ngayon, kung sino nabentahan nyo, bahala na kayo dyan, wala na kami dyan. But we allowed you to sell. We didn't clear you that
Or
you sold
to sell it to the foreigners.
So, medyo twisted po na pumayag yung SEC. So, kailangan, actually, maraming lumalabas sa internet ngayon ng mga explanations, lalo na, mga lawyers. So, I think, tayo pong lahat, hindi lang nanggagaling sa amin yung source ng knowledge nyo po. Maraming pwedeng pagkuhanan ng opinion. And I think it's better na maraming kayo na you will research on your own kasi napakalawak po ng pwede natin kunan ng mga ano. So, Eva Santos, good evening po. Consuelo Gomez, yung ating mami ko po yan. Congratulations po sa you gave us hope. Salamat po, ma'am. Ronald Malyari, mabuhay KTV, kamao. Mabuhay.
Right.
Maria Lucilia Angela Tongson, ano ipapalit ninyo sa tubig na iniinom namin kung nag-stop ang services ng Manilad at Maynilad Water? Tigil bayad sa...
Hindi, alam niyo po, ang tinitigil po, bayad lang. Hindi po talaga papara yung Maynilad at Manila Water. Yung MWSS po, tutuloy yan. Because MWSS is the government. Ngayon, ang tatanggalin lang po natin, itong mga oligarko na namamahala at may-ari. Yung po mga professionals sa MWSS, ay gobyerno po yan. Tutuloy po sila. Maglalagay po tayo, siyempre, ng mga matitinong tao na magmamanage. Pero ang gobyerno na po ang may-ari.
Hindi po magtitigil.
Tutuloy po yung inyong tubig na iniinom. Hindi lang po, siguro mas mahusay pa ang mangyayari dyan. Kasi ang gobyerno po hindi tumitingin sa profit, sa kita. Ang gobyerno po dapat ang tinitingnan nila yung maayos na serbisyo sa ating mga mamamayan.
General welfare.
Yeah.
Replying to Maria Lucila Angela, di tubig pa rin ang government ang dapat mag-manage. So we replied to the other. Public utilities, hindi mga oligarchs, tsaka taga-bill lang ang mga oligarchs. Kumbaga, pinamili sa grocery lang ang cashier. Pinamili. Grocery lang sila. Tama. Romel Toazo, magandang gabi po, Sir Butch at Sir Itos. Ganda ba, Romel? Darwin Miranda, good evening po. Freddy, present. Joel Lacandola, good evening to mga Sir Ito, Sir Butch, mabuhay Ating Katipunan. Buhay ka, Joel. Ernie Ocampo, magandang gabi po, Sir Butch and Itos. Mabuhay inyong programa. God bless. God bless po. So, Cesar Vigo, Jonalyn Liano, Marisa Camba, watching from Hong Kong. Abraham Mamuad, good evening. Jose Laurio Malonzo, good evening. Nika Utsugi, good evening, Sir Butch. Lisa Oabel Venturina, watching from Marikina, good evening. Reggie Maloyan Avenido, good evening po, Sir Butch and Itos. Cesar Sobrano, the KDP has the most meaningful national socio-economic agenda for our country to progress. I wish President Duterte takes cognizance of the KDP's national position and be progressively active in pursuing the very salient points towards national development that must uplift the plight of the masses of Filipino people still suffering from the quagmire of poverty and exploitation of the elite, filthy, rich oligarchy and their insidious political protectors.
Natumbok niyo po yun.
Very well said.
You know exactly what the problem of our country is, Mr. Soberano.
Yes. Miriam Kanekawa, good evening po. Esteban Pagtakahan, good evening mga idol, Sir Butch and Itos. Brenda Reddy, watching from Ireland. Mabuhay po kayo.
Mabuhay. Ireland.
Brenda Reddy. Charlene Ibonia, good evening. Watching from General Trias, Cavite. God bless. God bless you too. Freddy Ordina, oust greedy oligarchs, rent seekers out of public utilities. Correct. The public finance the capex of these oligarchs in power, water, LRT, MRT, and 2, etc. Income tax ibinulsa na siningil pa sa atin. Di doble ang kita, di po ba? Pinare-refund ng korte ayaw sumunod. Correct.
Right.
Joselario Malonzo, government should try to reclaim all utilities back to government control for the benefit of all Filipino people. Correct.
Right.
Esteban Pagtakahan, sana ma-declare ni PRRD ng RevGov para ma-change na ang Philippines Constitution. Para wala tayong pag-asa sa mga mambabatas natin, lalo na sa Senate, daming hadlang doon.
Tama po, sa Senado. Alam niyo po, sa Senado, mas madali ang bilihan dyan sa Senado. Konti lang kasi sila eh. No? Pero dito po sa House of Representatives, mas kinaalam natin, marami din po tayong hindi gustong nangyayari dyan. Pero nakita po ninyo, nakaraan na buwan, no? Pagdating sa, when push comes to shove, no? Pagdating sa talagang matinding mga issue, hindi nila matalikuran, no? At lumalabas pa rin at umiiral din ang prinsipyo na nandito sa kanilang kalooban, no? At tayo'y nasisiyahan naman na dahil po dito sa mga 3 o 4 na nindigan sa kanilang prinsipyo, sigurado ako inaalok yan ng mga pera, no? Sigurado yan, inaalok sila ng malalaking pera. At dahil sila ay nanindigan, nakuha din nila ang kalooban ng mga ibang mambabatas, no? Nasamahan sila dito. Kanya po ganyan ang voting 70-11, hindi po ba? Talagang dahil doon po hindi na nila dinala sa plenary dahil alam nila ganyan din ang magiging resulta.
Yes. Rodvite Pereabas, good evening Sir Butch and Itos. Hindi na kailangan mabenta ang government property. Si P. Duterte singilin na lang ng mga oligarko upang magkaroon ng budget ang gobyerno para sa COVID-19 vaccine. From Subic Zambales, watching you always.
Tama po.
Correct. Isay Ariel, yan yata abiso ng mga Dominguez magbenta ng property para makakumita pa sila. Isay Ariel, napakaganda po ang laman ng statement ni Sir Butch. Kung kahit 50% lang ng mga ito ay consider ni PRRD, sana talaga. Correct.
Thank you.
Kahit na dapat 100%. Nelly Sia Tasara, we must gather in prayer for the President to consider what is good for the Filipinos, to touch his heart and lead the people towards a better country on his last 2 years in office. Thank you, Mr. Butch and Itos. Good evening. Good evening. Nel.
I agree with you, Nel.
Correct.
Because all of these things also needs prayer. And prayers might move the President to do what is right.
Jose Lauro Malonzo, nagsimula po lahat ng panahon ni Cory na ipamigay sa mga oligarko ang mga utilities na guaranteed income. Simula na gatasan ang taong bayan. Maraming ginawang black propaganda upang maniwala ang taong bayan na mas maganda ang pamamahala ng mga oligarko. Nararapat lamang ang gobyerno ng mga utilities na ito upang ang taong bayan ang makinabang at maibsan at maihahon sa kahirapan. Correct. Yung black propaganda po, #1 media company in the Philippines. Yun yung Cory po. Since the beginning. Sila yung nag-justify at nagbibigay ng plataforma upang i-justify itong mga policies that are detrimental to our country. Sherzade Alonto, good evening KDP Masters. I totally agree that utilities should be taken back by government. Water, electricity, and even the internet. PRRD should put his iron fist of will on these very crucial issues. Burdens for the longest time to every Filipino household.
That's right.
Pwede Oridina, sewerage system, libre naman daw ang septic tank cleaning pero hindi alam ng taong bayan. Gil Ramos, purge the BIR and customs and kill the grafters with the reimposition of death penalty. The 2020 college graduates should be recruited into the ensuing vacancies and trained comprehensively. Double the salaries of a lean and mean BIR and customs for 2 consecutive years across the board. Purge the COA, the Commission on Audit, and kill the grafters with death penalty and triple the salaries of audit personnel across the board for 2 consecutive years. Dismantle unnecessary consulates, make the DFA lean and mean. Use Filipino duals as honorary consuls in the country where they are hosted. Double the salary of the DFA personnel. The Foreign Service should be used aggressively to strengthen our domestic economy instead of just mitigating the suffering of our OFW. They should also be used to aggressively build a strong state by supporting the buildup of the Philippine firepower capability.
Thank you very much, Hill.
Yan ba yung kaibigan natin si Hill Ramos?
Kaibigan po namin yan from
Florida.
Tallahassee, Florida.
Yeah. Freddy Oredina, newscaster Andanar made Duterte on duty every hour pero wala ang speeches ni Duterte na minumura ang oligarko kasi sa poll si MVP na pinanggalingan niya at walang andar. Si Martin Andanar. Arthur Alvendia, congrats partner, your 12-point agenda should be the core of the National Recovery Program. Ang problema from the very start, the President consistently admits his lack of technical competence and abdicated this crucial role to economists who continue to believe and apply a failed free market policy regime.
That's why we have to educate not just the President but many of the people around him.
Yeah. Erlinda Garcia, good evening mga sir, mabuhay po kayo. Mabuhay po kayo, Erlinda. Hill Ramos, Filipinos in the armed services should have 10% real increase in salaries, meaning their current salaries are first adjusted upward for inflation for the year and a 10% increase is added to it. The court-martial system to be strengthened and even the PNP should be under this judicial system. Scalawags that are proven guilty will be shot publicly by firing squad. Military personnel will waive their right to appeal to civilian court. Hence, the determination of the court-martial cannot be reviewed by Supreme Court and immediately executed.
You're talking of a revolutionary government here.
Yes. Joselario Malonzo, dapat lahat ng kontrata ng gobyerno na patungkol sa public utilities ay pag-aralan at busisiin kung dehado ang taong bayan. Yes. Yung mapatunayan na ginawang gatasan nito at dehado ang taong bayan, maaari itong pagkataon na bawiin na lahat na ito para kapakinabangan ng taong bayan. Yes, correct. Vic Valparaiso. Magandang gabi po, Sir Butch and Itos sa ating Katipunan. Good evening. Doris Valdes, magandang gabi, Sir Butch and Itos. Aimee Adrias, good evening. Good evening po, watching from Tokyo. Mabuhay pong KDP. Nelia Zudek, good evening po. Hiroyuki Sakai, rent-seeking and regulatory capture of the oligarchs must be stopped. Yes, privatization of public utilities is the business model of the oligarchs. Correct. Nelia Zudek, Filipino people needs incorruptible, smart, economic, financial employees in government. Yes. Rain. Ano kaya mangyayari sa zona ni Digong bukas? Kukunin na ba niya ang public utilities o magkikwento siya sa mga naggawa ng oligarch? Ang DILG nagbabala na hindi na magpapa-swab test at huli ng sino mang tumututol. May mga ulat na ginagamit na swab test na magiging positibo kaagad sa COVID at meron kompetensya para maabot ang target na kinakailangan para sa vaccine ni Bill Gates.
My goodness.
Grabe. Nelia Zudek, Filipino people need a smart, not corrupt economic, financial employees in government. Okay. Sherazade Alonto, matalino, wise at madiskarte talaga ang parunong Marcos. Naiiyak ako palagi sa laki ng paghihinayang ko kapag narinig ko mga accomplishments niya. Yes, I think a lot of it can be revived.
Right.
No?
Yeah.
In that era.
Yeah.
Freddy Oredina, OPSF sinabayan ng PNOC at Petron. Oil barges binenta at considered sunk cost binili ng oligarko, especially Ramon Ang. Hill Ramos, the military and Digong should take the country back from international thugs, global and local oligarchs who have nested here. The Filipino oligarchy, quote, the Filipino oligarchy is our entrenched enemy, not I or those like me who see and know the truth.
By F. Shonil Jose. Yan po si F. Shonil. Yung po sinasabi ni Hill, no? Alam mo, it's, actually, ang konsepto niyan probably is in a revolutionary government. No?
Yeah.
At alam niyo po, marami po sa atin ngayon, marami po nag-iisip na siguro ang kakailanganin po natin ay isang revolutionary government, no? Not to scare people, no, but actually to create the conditions and opportunity to straighten out what needs to be straightened. No? And all of these things that Gil Ramos has been suggesting is actually moving towards that direction. The other thing that is important that I think Gil Ramos had touched on is the importance of the role of the military. Now, the military right now, well, even before, has been experiencing a kind of image that when you say military, you actually mean atrocities, and you mean that is a kind of mind conditioning that has been done by the leftists on us. The leftists were, of course, supported by the mainstream media at that time, because the leftists have infiltrated the mainstream media. So they were mouthing the same things. Now, the military at that time doesn't, or up to now, does not have the propaganda machinery, no, to explain the things that and the idealism, no, that our military is basically trained on, the patriotism, the requirement for patriotism, and so on and so forth. Hindi po sila but my personal experience with them recently, especially recently, is I have encountered some people in the military in the higher ranks, colonels and generals, no, who are surprisingly very intelligent, very patriotic, and very reasonable. No? And that they, despite the fact that they know they have the arms to enforce what they want, no? They are not hungry for power. No? Alam niyo po, nakakatakot yung mga militar na, sige, tayo na para dahil meron silang baril. Nakakatakot talaga po. No? Pero ito pong mga nakilala ko, as much as possible, ayaw nila na mapasok dito sa sitwasyon na sila ang mamumuno. Unless the people want it. At ito po tayo papunta dyan kasi po more and more of our people are seeing that because of the conditions that we are facing, etong pandemic, etong pagbagsak ng ekonomiya, etong pagdagsa ng mga taong walang trabaho, no? Magkakaroon po tayo ng social problems. Nakakailanganin po ang order. We need to be functioning in an orderly manner and not in a chaotic or anarchic environment. And pag nakakita po kayo ng mga looters, ng mga akyat bahay, ng mga sumusugod sa mga restaurants at sa grocery stores, department stores, mga warehouse ng pagkain. Pag nakita niyo po itong mga food riots, ang tawag po dito food riots, kayo pong nag-iisip na ayaw nyo sa military, baka pagdasal nyo na pumasok na sila. No? Because this is what may possibly happen in the near future if we do not do what is necessary. Ito pong sinasabi natin sa ating proposed SONA address.
We have 5 minutes left. So
sige.
Okay. Edgardo Lagman, sana po bumalik ng gaya panahon ni dating President Marcos, walang oligarch. Gerald, very well said, Mr. Butch. Good evening thoughts to Mr. Butch and Mr. Itos. Hello. Randy Artiaga Santisas. Good evening and happy listening to Prince J.M. Rivera. Greetings from Randy Artiaga Santisas of Metro Manila. Nag-shout out pa. Pangahaya, good evening, sir. Butch and Sir Itos, the group of amazing Duterte ninjas. Japan, mabuhay and always God bless us.
Mabuhay kayo dyan.
Mabuhay kayo dyan. Rizel Hais Kadsinas Kunahap. Good evening po sa lahat. Good evening. Consuelo
Sir,
Gomez.
yeah.
KDP roadmap for recovery is the only way to save our nation today. Let's pray that Duterte accepts the challenge of being a living hero of the Filipino people.
That's right.
Well said. 5 minutes.
Meron pa ba?
We can add
Sige.
more.
Sige ba?
Gusto-
Kung meron pa.
Yeah, she'll copy paste. Yuko Take, unfortunately, Filipinos should stop their mendicant mentality. My observation is that there are just a lot of people who are taking advantage of the lockdown to just try and depend on the government for help. Sad that the president cannot depend on his secretary.
Yes, I'm sad also, Yuko, because the members of the cabinet do not share the same sentiment, no? and love for the Filipino people that the president seems to have.
Jean Tonic, watching from London.
Gin tonic.
Lemesio Rojas, watching from QC. Mabuhay ang KDP.
Hi Lemmy, kumusta ka?
Gil Ramos, if Digong is bent on ensuring honest elections in 2022, he should clean up the million voters padded into Comelec registries.
That's right.
Men Salas, hindi sila mukhang pera. Pinanindigan nila ang tama. I guess she's talking about the congressman. Teddy Gatella, good evening Sir Butch at Sir Itos, God bless po, stay safe. RJ, hindi libre ang septic tank service ng mga oligarkong Maynilad at Maynila Water. Obligasyon nila ito. Dahil binabayaran natin ito kasama sa 20% environmental charges. Kasi malingan ang sinasabing libre ang ng mga oligarko at pinagkakalat nila. Kaya kapag hindi kayo na serbisyohan, na isahan na naman tayo. Isang beses dapat ito sa 5 years.
Taon.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, RJ. Meron pa ba? Okay. Jose Lauro Malonzo, mabuhay ang KDP. I hope you have the proper line to talk this all to the President at sana mapatupad lahat ng 12 points to recovery now. Teddy Gatella, kailan kaya matatapos ang pagre-review ng DOJ ang mga kontrata ng water concessionaires? Magkano kaya bigayan para madelay ang review? Actually, yun po yung iniisip kong i-announce niya bukas na may deal sila. Yan po. Alfredo Oredina, where is Honasan? Telstra. Binigay na libre ng government na frequency, di natuloy ang third telco. Binenta ng SMC sa Globe. Smart. Dapat ibalik sa government, pinagbentahan. Greedy talaga naman ang nahidhid na oligarko. I think yes, that's I don't know about kung franchise yon or you buy it. I'm not sure.
He sold the franchise. He had the franchise, and he was trying to get an investor to join him in.
Right, but that's not allowed.
No, he had the franchise. Now he transferred the rights to another one.
No, that's
with the agreement of NTC.
Yun na nga, pero it's like frequency.
The ITC.
Oh, yung frequency you cannot transfer it. So yan ang alam ko. So, example ng computation ng 20% environmental charges, 400 times 12 months times 5 years. 24,000 po yan. Ngayon kamahal ng sinasabi nilang libre daw ang septic service ng Maynila at Manila Water. 20 years na po ang ganitong sistema. Isa ito sa malinaw violation ng mga oligarko.
Si RJ Abellana po, kilala niyo, kasama po natin dito sa KDP. Siya po ang talagang may kaalaman dito sa mga detalye at masilimuot na mga tinataguan nitong mga oligarko, no? Kaya ito po linalabas niya sa atin ng mga detalye, no?
Ogi po, bantayan po natin Senate Bill 1754 na ang isang layon ay hindi isali ang mga broadcasting companies as public service. Ito ay pagpapawalang sala sa mga broadcasting companies na pumasok din sa telecommunications.
Okay. Thank you for the warning.
Yeah. Isn't that the 100% ownership of Congress?
That's another one.
Gil Ramos, the senators are expectedly upset with the denial. Being elected at large to their dinosaur Senate positions, they would need a spin master like ABS-CBN to help them in their nationwide campaign. The House reps are not dependent on such a spin master and could easily get re-elected in their much smaller district representations. Hence, we see the House committee rejection. The obsolete Senate again exposed how much loyalty they have to the oligarchy, which sponsors their election funding. Time to get rid of the Senate the way it is composed.
Okay.
Not more?
Habang meron pa. Wala na. Okay. Well, nagtapos na po ang ating more than 2 hours po tayo dito po sa ating Katipunan. At nagpapasalamat po kami ni Ito sa inyo na sinamahan nyo kami ngayon. Dito po lalong-lalong na po dito sa pag-anunsyo ng State of the Nation Address 2020 ng KDP. Maraming salamat po at we'll see you again next Sunday.